So this is the last session of the day. We will begin the session in next 2 minutes. And one quick announcement, keep your phone on silent mode. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We now move to the last business session of the day, which is entitled The Brics Potential as a Global Economic Powerhouse. Um, we have two speakers. Mr. Khoitan, the president of Bharat Chamber of Commerce, was scheduled to present the paper, but he is unwell, so he is unable to be physically present. But he has been kind enough to send us the paper early, and therefore we have been able to distribute that paper. But we are very happy that the senior vice president of Bengal Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Naresh Pachishya, is here with us, and he would be presenting the paper on behalf of Mr. Khoitan. Mr. Naresh Pachishya is a leading industrialist of the city. He is a founder and managing director of SKP Securities Limited, which is Eastern India's leading boutique investment bank. He is associated with a number of institutional, corporate, and business houses as in advisory capacity. He is also actively associated with various entrepreneur organizations, and he is an alumni of St. Xavier's College, Kolkata. Naresh Saab, we are very, very happy that you are here today, sparing your valuable time. And could I please request you to please come out to the dais? We also have with us as another speaker our colleague Professor Ajita Rai Chaudhuri, who had been a worthy colleague of mine at Jadavpur University. Worthy. And also, presently, he is equally worthy colleague of mine in Adabas University. An eminent economist, Ajita Bor specializes in econometrics and operation research. He holds a PhD degree of the American University, Washington, and has to his credit of undertaking research projects sponsored by the UGC, the 14th Finance Commission of the Government of India, Asian Development Bank, the UNDP, Planning Commission of India, DFID UK, WTO, World Bank, Ministry of Finance, Government of India, and most recently, the ICSSR and the Government of West Bengal. Professor Raichodhuri was a Fulbright Fellow at Yale University, and he has held a number international assignments in a number of leading international institutions of higher learning. Professor Ajita Raichodhuri, could I please request you to come to the dais? And we are indeed very, very happy that you have agreed to spare some of your valuable time for us, particularly the students who have gathered in large numbers. I would also request my very good friend Shivashish, Professor Shivashish Chatterjee of Department of International Relations, Jadavpur University, who made a wonderful presentation in the pre-lunch session, to kindly chair the proceedings of the day. Professor Chatterjee, please.
Okay, so I welcome everybody to the post-lunch session, which is always a bit difficult, but nonetheless, a post-lunch session is also significant. So without any further ado, let me invite the speakers. The ground rule is very simple, 20 minutes for the speakers. So, sir, please make your presentation. And as it has already been said by, the Vice Chancellor of Adams University, Professor Professor Suranjan Das, that he is speaking the paper on behalf of the presenter who was supposed to come, who unfortunately could not come. So we are very thankful that, he's taken up the trouble and making the presentation. Thank you very much.
My fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, today I stand before you to discuss a transformative force in the global economy, the BRICS alliance, encompassing Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Born at the dawn of the millennium with 4 members and expanded in 2010 with the addition of South Africa, BRICS represents a coalition poised to redefine international economic dynamics, offering an alternative to institutions long dominated by the West. During the last few months, the BRICS entity has witnessed a number of important discussions which aim to address some of the key challenges facing the global South. I therefore consider this national seminar on BRICS as a global alternative, prospects and concerns for India as a very timely initiative to review the emerging challenges and opportunities before us. I wish to congratulate the Netaji Institute for Asian Studies, Kolkata, Adams University, Kolkata, and HP Ghosh Research Center, Kolkata for organizing this event. I also appreciate the privilege that has been granted to me to express my views at this important session on the BRICS potential as a global economic powerhouse. A paper has already been submitted by our Bharat Chamber of Commerce in this regard. I would therefore like to briefly highlight some of the important issues concerning the economic aspects of the BRICS and how we need to position ourselves in the emerging contexts. So let's first discuss the formation and objectives. In the early 2000s, the leaders of Brazil, Russia, India, and China envisioned a collaboration that would steer the global economy towards a more inclusive future. With South Africa's addition, BRICS not only expanded its geographical footprint but also its ambition to become the leading providers of manufactured goods, services, and raw materials by 2050. Now let's come to expansion and global influence. As a Chamber of Commerce, we know that if we are effective, various organizations would like to be our members. Until last year, BRICS was an organization of 5 nations. During the last couple of years, considering the importance of BRICS, nearly 40 countries expressed their interest to join this group. At the last summit held in August last year, 6 emerging and developing countries, Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, were invited to join the membership with effect from January the 1st, 2024. This expansion, dubbed BRICS Plus, signifies a growing geopolitical influence, promising enhanced economic cooperation and developmental finance, marking a pivotal moment in the journey towards an economic powerhouse of the emerging world. In the context of being an economic powerhouse, GDP is an important indicator. In this context, while the GDP of the BRICS increased from 16.9% in 1995 to 32.1% in 2023, during the same period, the GDP of G7 group of countries declined from 44.9% to 29.9%. I am told that by the end of 2022, as per World Bank data, while the BRICS accounted for 25.77% of the global GDP, the BRICS Plus now accounts for more than 36%. Besides, the BRICS bloc now represents more than 45% of the world's population. Strength in energy is another indicator of being an economic powerhouse. In the BRICS, all the core countries except Russia are oil dependent. I therefore feel that the countries that have now joined BRICS will, on the one hand, geographically strengthen the interests of the Middle East in the global south, and on the other hand, will ensure that the economies of the BRICS nations function well oiled. In terms of trade, the platform of BRICS helped the member countries to resolve mutual differences and strengthen trade relationships. India recorded over 100 billion US dollars of intra-BRICS trade in 2022. And Russia has rapidly moved from being our 25th largest trade partner to 7th position within a few years. Despite frosty political relationships, trade between India and China touched an all-time high, crossing 135 US billion dollars. Our bilateral trade with Brazil and South Africa is also improving. One of the economic priorities of BRICS include encouraging the use of local currencies in international trade and financial transactions between BRICS as well as their trading partners. I therefore expect that there will be a quantum jump in our bilateral trade with the new members. With the objective of enhancing financial cooperation and stability within the group, BRICS nations have established the Contingent Reserve Arrangement CRA and the New Development Bank NDB, better known as the BRICS Bank, headquartered in Shanghai. Recently, the NDB has provided a 500 million US dollar loan to India. The loan will be used to build infrastructure for nearly 13,500 kilometers across the rural areas of Gujarat. The roads will be built with innovative and resilient designs that can withstand harsh climate. One of the most important objectives of BRICS is to minimize the importance of the US dollars, the world's reserve currency. The NDB is therefore preparing to launch new bonds in global markets called Maharaja bonds, worth 28 billion US dollars, which will be available in local currencies to governments, financial institutions, and regular investors. In the context of de-dollarization, I think that the dollar's widespread use is self-enforcing and will remain as a preeminent instrument for cross-border trade. I therefore feel the efforts towards dedication would not be easy. The focus of BRICS Plus should rather be on cross-border trade with INR. In fact, the IMF has identified the INR, Indian National Rupee, as a potential international currency alongside China's RMB. We all know that the Reserve Bank of India has already permitted banks from 22 countries to open special Vostro Rupee accounts for settling payments in Indian rupees. In the circumstances, being an accepted international currency would mean the INR should be freely used in transactions by residents and non-residents and as a reserve currency for global trade. The Government of India needs to facilitate all export and import transactions with the BRICS nations and the other 22 countries to be invoiced in INR. Let's come to now the challenges and the path forward. Despite BRICS' journey being glorious, it is not without its obstacles. The preeminence of China, fluctuating trade among member states, and competition in third-party markets pose significant challenges. As we navigate a changing global landscape marked by geopolitical tensions and economic sanctions, BRICS stands at a crossroads. The alliance must choose between promoting the interests of emerging economies or adopting a stance explicitly countering Western hegemony. Besides, as per the Business Council Annual Report 22-23, the mutual trade among the BRICS stands at less than 320 billion US dollars annually and is witnessing a downward trend in stark contrast to their work with the US and the European Union, which is 6.5 times higher. BRICS nations have to work towards a more cohesive approach. Further, so far the BRICS countries have not been able to overcome their competition in the third party markets in a few sectors like textiles and garments, pharmaceuticals, etc., in the markets of the African continent, and in the spheres of international aviation and defense equipment. This competition often prevents collaborative development and adoption of emerging technologies by the member countries. Even though BRICS now controls more of the world's GDP than the G7 on a PPP basis, its citizens have significantly less economic mobility than those residing in the most advanced economies. On the whole, there is no doubt that the BRICS bloc is now effectively overcoming some of the key challenges facing the global south, including food security, climate change, digital divide, and issues related to multilateralism and the WTO's reforms. This is no doubt an important socio-economic accomplishment. In closing, I would like to say that the BRICS alliance, with its expanded BRICS Plus membership, represents not just an economic bloc, but a beacon of hope for a more diversified and multipolar world order. Its success will hinge on the ability to overcome political challenges and foster sustainable development, ensuring that BRICS not only dreams of a shared future of prosperity, but also realizes it. Together, we are on the brink of a new chapter in global economics, where the BRICS alliance has the potential to reshape the world as we know it today, making it imperative for us to navigate wisely and inclusively. I am therefore convinced that the BRICS Plus has all the potentials to be one of the global economic powerhouses. I wish to thank Professor Suranjan Das, Vice Chancellor at MS University and Honorary Director, Netaji Institute for Asian Studies, Kolkata, for inviting me to this August gathering. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for this very well organized, cogent, and I think very contemporary relevant presentation. I think I don't need to take you through the points that in fact have been very lucidly presented. I think it gives us a very clear idea about what the economic potential in fact is, what the challenges are, and I felt myself happy that he concluded on a positive note, that he feels that BRICS in fact would be able to create an alternative, not only in political terms, but also in terms of opening new chapters in the world economy. So let us hope that something of that kind in fact would happen. So without any further ado, let me invite Professor Ajitavo Roy Choudhury, who is a teacher of mine by default, in the sense that I've never been into his classes, but he was very much a member of faculty when I was a student on campus. An absolutely world-class, renowned professor in his own time. I'm sure that this would really be a presentation which in fact would not only shed significant light on some of the issues and concepts, but also be accessible to all of us. Economics sometimes make presentations that are not accessible to everyone. Ajitavo is someone who makes economics accessible to virtually everyone. I hope that tradition in fact would continue.
Sir, return next, the previous.
Well, our Honorable Vice Chancellor just said that I am a worthy colleague, so I can't prove myself to be unworthy. And so whether I want it or not, I have to be here. I never, disobeyed what he said. So, tough task. I cannot speak nonsense. I have to speak sense, so that I maintain my worthiness. And to our chair, Shibashish, again, another accolade. World class, I don't know what this world means here. He might have meant something else than what we understand by world. But anyway, whatever he understands, I go by this, very nice adjective he used. So what I want to present is, at the end of the day, as you know that we are all tired, and you must have heard a lot about Brics. So I will have a little cinematic flavor in the sense that I will have PowerPoints. So it will somewhat, I guess, give you a little pleasurable time not to fall asleep. And that's my only purpose right now. Apart from obviously trying to be a little worthy speaker. Now, as you can see that from 1st of January, we wanted 6 additional members in Brics, and that you have heard. And Argentina, after their new election, there's a new president. And he clearly said, I am not joining Brics. The main reason is, whether we like it or not, is China, because he has his own philosophy. He doesn't want to be overpowered by a dominant force in Brics, and that's the reason he gave here. Because he has all different kinds of things in mind. Completely dismantling peso and going for dollar as a currency and so on and so forth. So we have the other members, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Ethiopia, Egypt, and United Arab Emirates. I will discuss everything based on the first, original members, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And what I will do, I will just present some data, and I will give some very basic highlighters of this data so that I can build up my argument, and when I finish, I do not lose track of what I said in the beginning. The first thing which I want to say, if you look at the growth rate, what essentially is growth rate? We have a national cake, that's the GDP, how the cake is growing. And we are all eating this cake, everybody in the economy, everybody in the society. So faster it grows, faster we can eat, although unequally, no doubt. Somebody eats bigger pieces, somebody eats smaller pieces. That's how inequality grows in the society. I'm not touching upon that. If you look at this, India is a stellar case. And 2002, remember this years, I haven't mentioned in every data point because of logistic problems. But all data starts from 2002 in 4 years interval, 2, 6, 10, 14, 18, 22. Look at the Indian story. It's a consistent high growth economy, highest among Brics. Now somebody can say China had a huge growth rate some point of time, and naturally if you grow fast, you have a very big national cake, so the growth slows down. Hardly matters to me. The fact is, if we look at the future, India is a case in point, which is a growing economy. So would India take the lead in Brics? More slides. Let's see what happens. Now see about the trade scenario. Did I miss something? No. Okay. As you know, those of you, I can see my students in economics, they know that a national cake is not only eaten by us. Something is exported, and something which you eat comes from abroad. So altogether a trade really means exports, imports combined. If you look at this, South Africa has the highest figure, and the rest is somewhat comparable. If you look at 2022, that's the last year. So not much difference. India was a very closed economy in the 70s, 80s, not much trade. Things have changed. Now if you look at the BRICS scenario, it's more or less comparable. International indebtedness, that's another thing which is important for us. How much we are indebted in terms of the national product which we produce. And if you look at the indebtedness, India again stands out the best. Obviously in this figure, Brazil and South Africa, a lot of indebtedness. Indebtedness means you have to pay to foreign loans, international loans and debt which you have created. India still has a very good scenario right now. So whatever we say, India's position in that sense, because indebtedness really takes out a lot of things from you and it has to be paid back to foreigners. Not only it's a current generation problem, it really affects the future generation too. Because the future generation doesn't do any harm. They are not at fault, but they bear it. Now, if we look at the tariff rates, and that's another important thing, when we talk about trade within BRICS countries, how much the BRICS countries are trading among themselves, tariff is nothing but duty. So you want to import, smartphones, electronics parts, even pharmaceutical components, do you pay duties on that? And if you look at the tariff rate, and forget about whatever is written there, tariff rate, again, Brazil has the highest rate. Brazil is always very closed. Among all the South American nations, Brazil is taken to be a powerhouse, maybe, but they have a very high duty structure. And India had a high duty structure, but now it's comparable with rest of the BRICS countries. So it's not that we have built a wall against foreign investors, foreign countries, and we deliberately restrict our trade. We're not doing it. It's more or less comparable in that way. The next is rural population. And that's a very important thing, which I will come back in a moment. See, when you think about the BRICS nation, the composition of its population is important. You must have heard, all of you, that how much the rural economy, how much people in the rural sector are buying of industrial goods is the real backbone of increasing market share of the industry. And that's really generates or propels growth in a country. In India, this is an international figure. I haven't got into national figures, then I cannot compare. This is a World Development Indicator database, which is produced by World Bank. They use similar methodology, so you can compare. And you can see, here India stands out. The largest rural population in terms of share is in India. So that makes it somewhat asymmetric in BRICS country. Keep everything in mind, we have to, in order to understand how BRICS will go. It's not a homogeneous entity. It has got its own differences, and we must admit it in order to have a successful BRICS in future. R&D expenditure, the weakest point of BRICS. Because as you know, innovation drives an economy in these days. Just copying what the others are doing, those days are over in these days of WTO and others. You cannot do it. What maybe Japan did at some time, Korea did at some point of time, China did later on. We cannot do it anymore. If you look at this expenditure, China has a largest percentage of R&D expenditure is 2.14. It's not a bad figure. The rest are, it's not worth mentioning. India is no great story as far as the R&D is concerned. Manufacturing value added. How much is the manufacturing sector? I will come to this point. I will try to, give this, it is my opinion, and I'm quite sure it's shared by others, many others also. Manufacturing is the main story of the growth of an economy. We hear this term services-led growth, like India has done very well in services. What they couldn't do in terms of goods in trade, they did it in services. And we have a feeling that, IT is the only thing we do. IT is not the number one in services in India. We have transportation, we have other kinds of services where India also has an advantage. And if you look at the manufacturing value added, as I say, that why I am not that confident that only services matter, because if you look at it, any service has two components. Something we buy directly. Like if we have a car of my own, I have a service produced by the car. That's my personal service. If a car is used by a firm, it's not a personal service. It's used by a company. Maybe they are in manufacturing sector. Every item in service has two components. One component directly consumed by us, the other component is a derived demand, generated somewhere else. Maybe in the manufacturing sector, they need logistics service, they need accounting service, they need financial service, they need transportation service, everything for that matter. How much in the services is generated in the manufacturing sector in these countries? Unfortunately, this thing is not known. I do not know a single study produced, for example, in India, which has gone into this demarcation. Services, how much is consumed directly by us and how much is generated in the manufacturing sector. So if manufacturing grows, a part of service gets a fillip. Its demand is generated not by us directly, but through the manufacturing sector. So manufacturing to me is very important. And if you look at the manufacturing, China is exception. In the last figure of 2022, it's 27.70. If you look at this figure, China, and look at the others, 11, 13, 12. So there's a lot to do in manufacturing sector. And as I said, services depends a lot on manufacturing too. It's not in silos. It's not like watertight compartments. One generates the demand for others. So to me, manufacturing is the key. Now, if we go further, 2 or 3 tables, and then I go quickly to something else. Manufactured exports, that's another important thing. If you look at the manufactured, how much our export are manufactured goods? China excels, 92%, India 62%, but surprisingly, if you look at Brazil, 25%. Look at the Russian Federation, doesn't have a figure for 2020 to 2018, 19% only. If you look at South Africa, 37%. For India, 62%. Why are these countries exporting so little in manufacturing? Don't they have industrial base? They do. But their main items of export, you will get to know it as I go ahead. Something else, not manufactured goods. Imports, at a little different story, import a lot of manufactured goods. Manufactured goods import is somewhat a very important thing for all the countries for that matter. A lot more to do in that sense. All right, I don't know whether I can read it or not. Let me read it for you. Now, what this says is again is a database I took from World Trade Organization. International database is the only source we have to use. This cross-country studies. Now, if you look at the WTO database, I just summarize the table. As I said, Brazil, Russia, and South Africa do not export too much of manufacturing. What do they export? Agricultural goods and fuel. You know that in the current scenario how much Russian Federation depends on fuel export. And that's there for long. It's not a new phenomenon. Brazil, agricultural products, food and other things. Number 1, 2. South Africa again, fuel, minerals. So manufacturing in that sense, India and China. The two nations within Brics, they are forerunners in manufacturing. That's an advantage for us. As I said, manufacturing drives the economy. Not only manufacturing sector, but the services sector as well. But if I compare China and India, huge difference. It's almost like if you look at this, the manufacturers in case of, this is China, and if you look at the manufacturers, see the figure, 2263346 million. And if you look at India, 2992, this is 7 digits, this is 6 digits. So almost 5 times more China exports manufacturing goods. And that's good or for bad. You'll realize what that in a moment. Share of world territory. Rest of the world, 71% and almost 29% Brics countries. If you look at the share of world population, as you can see, it's 59% rest of the world and the rest is almost 41%. So less territory, more population. Good or bad? in a sense good, we are the market, in a sense bad. Density makes certain things really difficult. Education, health, think about it. Again, this is something which I will finally go towards this. How much do we trade among ourselves? BRICS is a regional conglomeration. 5 countries. How much do we trade? If you look at this, highest in that case is Brazil. China, only 7.2% of their total trade goes within BRICS. India is about 20%. South Africa, 20%. So, for some of these countries, only 1/5, and for China, it's 1/6, or less than that, 1/7 almost. So, we do not trade among each other. We trade with the rest of the world. Now, I have heard that the hope is our trade will increase. Our hope is that we will strengthen ourselves within. I will come to that in a moment. Something we can have a wishful thinking, something borne out by data. This is the same thing for services. This purple color is how much we trade among ourselves. Look at this. This is the figure for Brazil. And this figure is consistently the same. They trade a whole lot with, say, North America or Europe. That's the common story. You go country after country. This purple is a small figure. So we talked about total trade, now talk about services trade. Why I am saying so? Because services trade is the most successful thing for India. Most successful. But in terms of share, BRICS is a minuscule figure. All right, so these are all country-wide figures. I'm not going to spend much time on this. This is the figure of foreign investment. How much foreign investment is coming? As you can see, it's quite a fast growth, whatever is coming from outside. And who are investing? Mutual funds of United States. Other mutual funds of Europe and other countries. Third countries, where we have even some dubious funds that may be somewhere, Cayman Islands and all this, they might be coming too. But anyway, mainly mutual and pension funds, the biggest investors. These are institutional investors. If you look at that, this is a huge growth between 2001 and 2011. And then between 2011 and 2021, this has slowed down, and China corners the biggest amount of this inward investment. Now this is within BRICS countries, in terms of total investment in the world, how much do we corner? If you look at these figures, this yellow curve which is going, like a continuous curve which is going, shows the percentage. Somewhat it went well. From 2014 went down, then it's going up, and it's roughly about 25% of total investment made in the world comes to BRICS countries. Not a bad thing. 1/4 is cornered by us. Now, this is something which I want to say, and this is how much of investment which is happening is made by BRICS countries within BRICS. That's important for us. Worldwide investment is coming. They are coming from many parts of the world. But if we want to strengthen BRICS as a group, how much is coming from one BRICS country to another? Just for comparison, this is the key thing by which ASEAN countries developed. You know, ASEAN is a magical story for the world. Fastest growth in last 3 decades. One of the things they did, they strengthened their investment among themselves. So whatever is happening, a computer is produced, all right? A CPU is produced in one of the ASEAN countries, hard disk is produced in another, the chips is produced somewhere else, and it's maybe a Thai company which is producing some kind of a computer. Or even a multinational company is manufacturing that, It's made in Thailand is there, but it's all sourced from ASEAN countries themselves. What happens? Employment goes up, small industries get help, and overall the growth is generated. And so within the country, within this formation, if investment takes place, the regional formation gets strengthened. Now if you look at this, again, you can hardly read. This is some of the investment which is done by Brics countries within themselves. Very few. And it's cornered by China. If you can read, it's almost like China, 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 in all different countries. China investing in Brazil, China investment in Russia, China investment in India, the name of the company, the name of the field is all given here. And this is the database again, which is produced by WTO and some other international bodies. China looms large in this whole intra-Brics investment among all the countries which we have. Now, this is the final part which I want to come. See that why I am stressing this, as I said, if we suppose what ASEAN did, they are increasing their manufacturing products, all the parts are not sourced from outside ASEAN. They generated the demand within ASEAN countries. That's the biggest advantage they had. And the industrial base grew. Along with the industrial base, services grew. And as you know, internal strength, just like a body, my internal strength is the biggest source of my movement. The external, anything which helps me externally just helps. But the internal strength is the main. And if you look at the internal strength, that's what I'm trying to say. Brics doesn't have a very healthy story right now. No comparison with ASEAN countries. See that what is happening. This figure shows that foreign value added in domestic final demand. Let me just explain in very simple thing. Suppose I am producing wheat, I am producing oil, I am producing cars, I am producing clothes, I am producing pharmaceuticals, etc. How much is this coming from foreign sources? Foreign sources can supply me, say, parts. For example, I am producing a computer, parts is coming from somewhere. Or I am just buying lock, stock and barrel a foreign product, maybe smartphones. Cars are produced here, maybe parts are coming from somewhere else, from other countries in the world. Pharmaceuticals we are producing, we have strength in that. But the components or ingredients are coming mainly from China and from other parts of the world. The more it happens that I am producing something, but the foreign countries are involved in this. This is called interconnectedness. And what I'm trying to show, this interconnectedness in Brics, how much it is interconnected within Brics. That means, say, China is producing things for Brazil. Brazil is producing things for India. India is producing things from South Africa. Look at this first partner is Brazil. Look at these figures. So for Brazil, if you look at this, how much of their goods which they are consuming is coming from outside and who is supplying? If you look at this, 2.9% is supplied, 3.3% is supplied by China, 1.1% by India, 0.9% by Russia, and South Africa 1.5%. These are mainly fuel and oil, etc. So 100 rupees of things produced and consumed in these countries, only say 3 rupees, it's in dollars terms, say $100 consumed, $3 is coming from our own Brics. $1 is coming from our own Brics. Where from it's coming? From OECD, European Union, North America, Australia, Canada, you name it. This is for Brazil. And I've got figures for China. This is partner country China. And if you look at this, there is some investment in China because as you know, China has become, as a common word used, factory of the world. If you are factory of the world, you need raw materials, you need parts. And as a result, as you can see, China has huge, OECD is the European partners, along with some small other countries. It's $40 out of $100 which they consume come from OECD. And if you look at the other things, 18 is supplied by Brazil, India supplies 17, and Russia, it's about 22. Look at India. In India, again, if you look at how much of our consumption is supplied by Brics nations, Brazil supplies $2.8 of $100 we consume. China supplies 2.3, 2 by Russia, 5.5 by South Africa. Go to Russia, again, same story. Go to South Africa, similar story. Out of that, the biggest is China. China is participating lot more than other countries, a big, in a sense, nation which exports. And as a result, within Brics, if somebody is participating within Brics, supplying parts component, supplying goods, is China. But that also is not a significant figure. So within Brics, our interconnectedness is really weak. The main reason is this, that we do not invest among each other. Chinese companies mainly invest in Africa, South America, Russia, say India lately, or in some of the Asian countries, not in Brics. If you go country by country in Brics, your advantage is if we have a company which is investing within us, say a Brazilian company investing in, say, India, it's likely that the parts and component will originate from Brazil and will come to us. So, along with investment comes interconnectedness. And since we do not invest among each other, we do not are that much interdependent among us, so it's not a replication of what ASEAN did. And it will never be unless we can increase this interconnectedness. How can we increase investment? We have to invest among each other. How do we do that? I don't know. I don't have an answer. How can we increase it overnight? Overnight, impossible. Medium term, 5 years, not sure. 10 years, maybe. It's all question marks. Unless this is done, whatever we call about Brics, it will not be an ASEAN story. It will remain a wishful thinking on our parts. So at the end, thank you very much.
Okay, so you saw a number of these tables, and the tables were very, I think, very easily explained by Professor Rajchoudhury, and the moral of the story, in fact, is that we are not sufficiently interconnected because we are not sufficiently investing. Economics generally tend to prognosticate a bit more, but Ajit Aboda, in fact, has erred to the side of caution. He would not prognosticate, okay, not in the short run, not possibly in the mid run. For the 10 years, a maybe, okay. But the moral of the story is that if the investment goes up, interconnectedness would grow, and that in fact would really be something like a replica of ASEAN. I'm not quite sure that whether ASEAN is really the model for Brics, okay? I mean, if the comparison in fact is a bit of a comparison between two very different kind of organizations. But be that as it may, let me open the floor for questions, and we would take 4 or 5 questions as we did in every session, okay? To the Vice Chancellor, we would come last, okay? I mean, so students, okay? I mean, so I see 1 hand, 2 hands, any more hands in the back? 3 hands, okay? I mean, so first these 3 part, and then these 2, then Professor Das. Can this mic travel? Okay. এই দিক থেকে শুরু করা যাক, এখান থেকে এদিক থেকে।
Good afternoon, respected dignitaries. My name is Samriddhi Srivastav. I'm a PG student from Political Science Department. So, provided the given emphasis on economic potentiality, I would like to ask that how does economic considerations helps in shaping BRICS response to terrorism? Like, particularly when it comes to trading relations with nations suspected of supporting terrorist organizations.
Yeah, this
Thank
side,
you.
there were two hands here. Okay. তুমি একটু ওকে দাও তারপরে তুমি তুমি এসো
Hello, sir. My name is Saloni and I'm from SOE. So, my question is what will be the effect if there will be a rural development? Because you, as mentioned, that India has a very much percentage of rural population. So, this is my question.
Good evening, sir. My question is.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. I am Rishabh Kumar Ram, a second year student of history. And my question is regarding, as you mentioned, the role of service production and the availing of services in different countries playing a major role in the economy of BRICS countries. And there you mentioned the example of Brazil, how Brazil is consuming a large part of its services produced from North American countries. So my question was that apart from services, the consumption of services and production of services, do you feel that petty politics is a bigger issue which plays a major role in this game? Because as you took example of Brazil, there is another example from Latin America, and that is from Chile. We all know that in 1973, Salvador Allende, the president of Chile, he was overthrown by his own general, Augusto Pinochet, and his regime was supported from America. Salvador Allende was against the interference of American industries.
Excuse me. I mean, this is all going back into history. Can you be very specific with the question?
So my main question was that do you feel that politics rather than consumption and production of services play a major role in this game? Thank you.
There were hands on that side, okay. ওইখানে ওইদিকে
Hello, good afternoon to one and all present on the stage. And myself, Raj Shekhar. I'm a student of public administration at Edinburgh University. So my question is divided into two parts. So first, in the words of Jim O'Neill, he said that by 2050, the BRIC economies will dominate the entire economy of the globe. At the same time, the deputy chairman of the State Duma, Mr. Alexander Babakov, has said that the work is underway to creation a new form of currency under the BRICS. So my question is, though these BRICS nations are in a very growing run, or they are very growing economies, so there is a possibility of feuds among the BRIC nations also. So how this will affect the currency, if there will be a currency? Thank you.
Okay, there's a hand at the back. পিছনে দেখুন একজন আছেন.
Good evening, sir. My name is Rajdeep De. I am from third year International Relations Department at Edinburgh University. So my question to you is that during the previous year of BRICS summit held, there was an intense meeting of the reduce of the dependence of dollarization for the trade that has been happening across the world. And US clearly sees it as a threat to its own dominance in the world power. My question to you is that even if BRICS somehow manages to counterfeit the dollar and the dominance of US, is it possible that US will again play any politics or any sort of like a clickbait so that it could ensure its own dominance over the world and a counter to BRICS?
I don't see. Okay, there's one more. Yes. Go ahead. Anyone there? If there is no one there, then okay. There is one hand there. This is the last question from the student segment, and then I'll come to Professor Dan. I don't think there is any other hand. এদিকে একজন আছে. Right at the back. Is there anybody at the back? Okay, there is one behind the camera.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Progression Bhattacharya. I'm from the economics department and I'm one of Ajita Boray's research student. So my question to you, sir, is personally, is that you showed us a lot of data how the manufacturing sector is not up to par with the other nations or the developed countries, and like how the intertrade between the BRIC nations are not as much as we hope for them to be developing as they should. So my question is, how can the policymakers of all these BRICS nations come up with certain policies that can help, to integrate the countries together and, achieve the level of success that the Asian organization has achieved over its period of existence?
Okay.
Good evening, sir. I am Ashwini Kumar Nayak for Masters of Computer Application. And my question is, how does the unemployment rate of BRICS countries compare to that developed countries? And if it is increased, that how do we resolve it?
Professor Das.
Could I first congratulate the two presentations? They were extremely important and fabulous. I particularly like to first underline the importance of this panel. Sir, I am very, very thankful to you for sparing your time with us. Now, the uniqueness of this present seminar as it was conceived was to bring together the diplomats, the academicians, as well as representatives from the trade and industry. In earlier sessions, we had the interactions between the diplomats and the academics. And now it is the first session where we could interact with the industry sector. In the new education policy, there has been a constant importance been given on interaction between the university and industry. And I see this as a part of the university industry partnership program. And I do look forward to having more interactions with Bharat Chamber of Commerce. Keka Madam is here. Let this be an entry point of a new interaction process. Now, if I hope I'm not wrong when I see that the presentations, particularly for the academic side, tended to be more pessimistic in terms of the BRICS. But here I find a complete optimism from the industry side, which is, I think, a very stark in contrast, but I think is very, very hopeful. I compliment the industry for taking this positive note. With Ajitavo, it's a really wonderful presentation. And I do appreciate some of the apprehensions that you have voiced in your paper. But taking the cue from what Shivashi said, I was wondering whether it would be completely correct to compare ASEAN with BRICS. ASEAN was established, if I am not incorrect, in 1967. BRICS was established in 2009. So it's a gap of 42 years. BRICS is 42 years younger than ASEAN. And the objective of ASEAN, I don't think is similar to that the objective of BRICS. I would also like to point out that China is now a dialogue partner of ASEAN. And if you now see the recent trade figures, the sort of apprehension that you are making about Chinese domination in BRICS is also looming large in the case of ASEAN. So I would like to have your comments on this too.
Thank you very much. I mean, let me just sort of say something which is obvious, and sometimes we have to state the obvious, which is that only two questions were pointed. Okay, I mean, one by the student at the back who happens to be the student of the professor who presented the paper, and so that question came to the professor. And Professor Das had made a comment which in fact is at the industry, but a couple of questions to Professor Rajchodhuri. Other questions were general questions thrown to the panel at large, okay? I mean, so I excuse myself and I would not obviously answer any of the questions because technically I'm not part of the panel. So any one of you can answer these questions, which in fact have not been directed specifically.
Let him start.
Yeah.
Thank you. I must say some smart questions. So to answer to yours, sir, about the positive sides of businesses thrive on optimism. positivity. So we try to seek positivity out of everything, and so is from the BRICS relations. There are several merits, as mentioned in the paper, to have BRICS now, BRICS Plus. If BRICS would not have been, the idea of BRICS would not have been positive, then BRICS Plus would not have happened. That's the biggest proof. And obstacles will come on the way. For example, geopolitical tensions between India and China. Galwan Valley, post that, India-China relationships did take a backseat. And so these obstacles can come in the life of any organization, whether it's in business or it's a group of nations. So we have to take it with that, and solutions will also come. So that's one part. To a question put by one of the students, I must say good economics makes good politics. Okay. There can be misalignments between good economics and good politics. It can be for elongated periods of time, but ultimately good economics will take over good politics. The Soviet Union, and the erstwhile Soviet Union, and the Eastern Bloc is a testimony to this, what I'm trying to put forward. And the economic forces like demand and supply and consumption that you mentioned, is all a part. Ultimately, economics do drive politics. Politicians will put, what I want to say is that it's good politics is putting good economics in place. So the other side is also true that if you are not able to manage good economics, your politics is not good. Third part about economics and terrorism, these are just not black and white as we talked on some of the aspects of BRICS. These are very complex geopolitical and macroeconomic relationships amongst nations, some of whom may have used terrorism as a tool. I don't want to go into that territory, but good economics can certainly dilute anything evil, and that includes terrorism. With this, I would rather ask the professor to answer on more of economic questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let me start in the reverse order. I start with Professor Das's question. I mean, he just outsmarts me in terms of dates. He remembers all the dates so well. I apologize. I don't remember all these dates so well. See that I think it's somewhat not my intention to compare and say that ASEAN has done so much growth, BRICS is not following, and BRICS is not doing that. My question is the modalities, the way the ASEAN succeeded, the methodology part. And that part is independent of time. It's the question of mindset. It's a question of leadership. That's my point. My point is not to say ASEAN has grown by 8%, 10%, 12%, and why BRICS is not doing that. So I want to make that clear. The other thing about China, we have two blocks in all discussions. One is all data are published now like this: ASEAN and ASEAN plus 3. You compare them, and you can see China is playing a very important role in this. The difference between ASEAN and ASEAN plus 3 is China, Korea, and Japan. And difference is made mainly by China. And obviously, Chinese dominance in this whole thing has created positive, negative, both types of feelings in other ASEAN countries. It will. But nonetheless, that's a fact which remains, and nobody can deny this. And Professor Das is absolutely right that this is a worldwide problem, not for only ASEAN BRICS. It is a problem in the world political economy scenario, which I'm not going too much into it. Unemployment rate, I did not mention the unemployment rate, but as I said, that if the intra-regional grouping trade goes up in terms of investment, unemployment is bound to increase because it just not promotes industry, manufacturing, it promotes services too. And that has happened to major groupings in the world. And so I didn't mention unemployment rate, but by the way, I did mention about what will happen to the labor. Shiva Krishna, policymakers' role. Important, no doubt. Is the leadership which matters. Is the foresightedness of the leadership which matters. And in between, if the leadership changes from one philosophy to another, from one side of the story, from center you move to the left, or from center you move to the right, this continuity is somewhat broken. But nonetheless, this foresightedness, the feelings that it's advantageous, will lead to more and more incentivization of this kind of intra-Brics investment, number one, and promoting intra-Brics transactions in terms of how many firms, how many companies, how many greenfield investment will take place. So we all hope that all the leadership in all the BRICS countries will be forward-looking. So for that. Dollarization and currency, two questions are the same. I am not really yet hopeful of that. See that a currency's strength grows out of how much you really command in terms of, foreign exchange in the market. It's just like a potato market. If there is too much potato prices will go down. Less potato price will go up. So if your currency is high demand, your value will go up. If your currency is in less demand, yours will go down. The point is, if you want to promote an alternative currency to dollar, remember, if these countries grow fast, they will accumulate a huge amount of this alternate currency. The question is, so long the trade still is from say yuan is the currency, non-yuan region for that matter. What we will do with so much heaps of yuan which is generated, or you accumulate that, when you are going to buy that from non-yuan countries and which are the major partners, they will say, no, I don't want it. So the strength will be so much that the currency will command a lot of price in the foreign exchange market. And I don't foresee that's happening too quickly. As you can see, our trade partners in North America, Europe, they are the major trade partners. Will they agree with the alternative BRICS currency? The oil producers, we tried. Little success with UAE and Saudi Arabia, not much yet. One has to see. They can come to BRICS for other reasons. But I don't know whether they will be very eager to have an alternative currency. Politics. Economics, one part of economics, economics grew out of a marriage between politics and economics. Our forefathers in economics, David Ricardo, Adam Smith, they are all political economists. Economics without politics never succeeded. It always happens that there is interface. So that's what happened, for example, say Argentina. Why did they go out of this? They went all out to be part of BRICS because they thought that to be part of BRICS is very good for them. They went out of it. Politics, simple. Brazilian, Lula came, then went out, again Lula has come. I'm not sure whether the same policies which were followed in BRICS earlier will be followed in toto in BRICS in Lula's regime. Politics does matter. But the only common thread I think is important is that if you look at the general standard of living of people, their aspirations, forward-looking strategies will dominate. People are eager to have a better standard of living simply because information flows costlessly. You know what standard of living your countries, those who are earning a high income are enjoying. Your neighboring countries are enjoying. News flows. And unless you are a forward-looking leadership in the political spectrum, I'm quite sure in days to come, you will not be there. So that's the hopefulness. I am hopeful about this forward-looking politics to dominate in some way or other in future. Rural development, as I said, is very important, especially for India. The market lies in rural areas, still now. And it's growing very fast. And so rural sector, especially countries like us, especially like in India, is very important. And that's there to stay for some time. I'm not going to answer the terrorism question because unless you have a state-sponsored terrorism going on within BRICS, I don't foresee how a strengthening of BRICS will generate more terrorism. Economic development, a higher standard of living generally leads to lower deprivation, feeling of deprivation. And that's likely to lead to less terroristic activities unless you have other kinds of things that one nation is fighting with the other nations, which I foresee will not be the case in near future. Thank you.
So I think all good things ultimately has to come to a close, right? So we had a long day with a number of presentations, very, very interesting presentations being made. And I really like this session, as Professor Das in fact has said, that sometimes when we are discussing issues which in fact look like directly related to international politics, we tend to forget that much of international politics is actually international trade, international financial operations, okay? And so therefore there is a need, I think, to highlight this, to bring the synergy of not only diplomats and not only, not only academicians, but also the other stakeholders in the process, because sometimes the way disciplines portray things is not really the way that others who in fact they are doing the job in fact would understand it. So therefore this holistic, I think, understanding is very, very important, and I think this needs to be encouraged, and I hope students in fact had also enjoyed this session, because this is the way I think that the direction in future in fact would have to be. So on this note, on this positive note, that good leadership and good politics would ultimately lead to good economics, and vice versa, let us bring this session to a close. I think there is some housekeeping to be done and another protocol to be completed. Up to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So as it's the code of the conduct, and I request our Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, sir, Radha Tamal Goswami, sir, to felicitate the guest. The chair of the session, Professor Subhashish Chatterjee. You have a round of applause. I'm thankful to you for maintaining the energy till the last of the session. I request Professor Naresh Pachesia, Senior Vice President, Bharat Chambers of Commerce, Kolkata. We also thank Mr. N.G. Khaitan, in absentia, President, Bharat Chamber of Commerce. Next, our beloved Professor Ajitabu Rai Chaudhary, Professor of Economics, Adams University. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir. Apne announce karo.
So this is the end of this today's discussion. Really, we enjoyed a lot. I'm not from this particular area or the expertise, but I also enjoyed different lectures, especially the last lecture by Professor Ajitabu Rai Chaudhary. Excellent lecture. Tomorrow, to all of you, tomorrow we'll start sharp at 11. So be here by 11. So I request all the faculty member and the dean, kindly tell your students to come over here by 11. Everybody should be seated.